Um, and the recording will be up on our YouTube channel, I would say tomorrow, the next day, if you want to go back and replay any of tonight's program. So,
Awesome. Well, really quick, I'm just going to flash the reference photo on the screen just so that you get an idea of what we're painting. We are going to do a landscape tonight. And so we just have to draw just a little bit. So if you could grab your pencil and I'm going to draw darker because I want you to see it. But if you draw a little bit lighter, that'll be easier for you to erase things. And my paper is in the landscape mode. Feel free to make any adjustments to your little mountain. I'm just bringing those lines over a little more. That looks a little less triangular. Okay. And we are gonna just jump down here a little bit and do a line that looks like this. And then on the left side, just a couple of swoops. I also would like to pop in this tree. And that is all we have to draw. So I will give everyone a minute to erase any extra lines you don't need anymore or make any last minute changes to your drawing. Okay, does anyone need a minute before we start our painting? Okay, I think we're good. And I want you to get your brush and your water and dip your brush in the water and start putting that clean water in the background. So it's not going to look like you're putting any paint on here because it's just the water. This is to do the wet on wet technique. And I like to use the light that's around me to see how shiny my paper is, to make sure that I've gotten every spot that I've needed to. And then if you look at your paint palette, um, I'm going to give you an option for the sky. You can either bring in blue and, make a normal blue sky, or if you want to bring in this mustard looking color, it is called yellow ochre, and it kind of makes for a nice bit of a sunset color. And I'm not trying to do it too dark. So blue or this yellow ochre, whichever you'd like. So I'm really spreading it out so that it's not all that dark. And once you get that color down of whichever you chose, you can let it dry. So I know it just kind of looks like I stained my paper, and that was what I was looking to do. And you can do the same thing on this other left side for the sky. You're still working on that first part, that is fine. It's the same exact thing. And let that dry as well. Does anybody need another moment on their sky? Okay, I think we are good. And everyone attending is currently on mute, which is fine. But if you ever have a question or anything and you need to come off mute, you are always welcome to do so. And you can type in the chat as well. I am constantly looking to see if anybody needs anything. Okay. And I would like us to make a black together. And you can see that I've mixed black in this section before right here. It is two colors. It is a brown and a dark blue. And if you're not sure if your paint is blue, because sometimes it just looks black because it's so richly pigmented, you can just bring a little bit of water to it and test it to figure out if it's blue. That's my blue, and I'm also bringing over my brown. And make a nice amount so that we don't have to make more. But if you do end up needing to make some more, that's not a big deal. Okay. And so this is what my black mix is looking like. You can see it just looks like a dark color. Here's a little swatch of it. Which brown? So it can be either brown. You're probably looking at a burnt sienna and a burnt umber. The burnt sienna is a little more of a reddish, orangish brown. I used the one that was straight up, just looks like regular brown. And I believe we all have some green in our palette. But if you ever run out of green, it is yellow and blue. So just kind of keep that in mind. Does anybody need a moment before we start the next section? Okay, I think we're good. So my sky is a little damp still, which is fine. But that's why we're going to skip around because we don't want to paint directly next to something that is wet or damp because it will just bleed right into that. So let's look at this section, which is going to be our river. And I would like you just to bring some water into it. My brush is still a little dirty from making that black, but that's fine. We're going to put black in this for some shadows, so it's not a big deal. And once you have this wet, you can start bringing in some green. And I want you to notice that I am bringing my strokes very much left to right. And I'm also leaving some of the white of the paper. So you can really see that green stroke, but surrounding it is just the paper. If you ever get too much water on here, feel free to grab a paper towel, and that will be really easy to soak up. And I'm bringing some of my blue, my lighter blue, on in here as well. And you can bring in your darker blue. And if you need to come back in with any of that green or that lighter blue, that's fine. And then if you want to start coming in with a little bit of your black, especially close to this edge, all right, and I'm gonna leave that be. As it's drying, if you feel like you need to come back in to lift out, you can do that with a clean, damp brush. All right, I'm gonna stop messing with that part now. And you can unmute or put it in the chat, but is it dry enough on the sky to paint the mountain for everyone? Okay, somebody did say no. That's fine. That's why I asked. I see some other yeses, so thank you. We will just wait a little longer on that. That's fine. Um, if you need to make more black, maybe if you used what you made in this, please take a moment now to do so. Mine kind of disappeared, so I'm just popping it back in while it's still wet. That looks much darker now. That's better. All right. So I know that um, we're not ready on the sky yet. So then let's look in the middle. And for mine, I did just put water in this little section, but that's okay because we are gonna start it a couple of millimeters up higher than where it's wet. So let me put a little bit of paint down. So you see I have a gap, got a little gap there. So nothing is going to be disturbed. So I just put that little bit of paint on there to show you where I was ending. You are just putting water for right now. And I want it to go higher up to the left as you put that down. That's a lot of paint. So once you do have this little section painted in there, you can bring in some of that yellow ochre, that kind of mustardy looking color. This one. And then I'm going to start taking my dark blue and pop that in there. And a little bit of your black. once you get those colors on there, I want you to come on in and do what I'm doing, which is with a clean, damp brush, giving it a little scrub at that top edge so that it's not a hard line. So you can see I am like putting my hand all the way up here. You could even rotate your paper to be upside down for a moment. But I'm pointing my brush tip towards this line. And if it's dry enough to come over here and do that same thing, I'm mainly going to focus on the blue and a little bit of the black. And just scrub that little edge out at the top. Okay, does anyone need another moment on those two things? Yes, okay, no problem. Okay. So then let's look back at this mountain. And this time we are going to do what's called wet on dry, meaning we are not bringing water into here. We are just going in straight with our color. Now you do have to get your brush wet to touch the paint, but the paper will remain dry. So, if you could find your orangey brown color, it's called burnt sienna, and start coming in with that. And then start coming in with your dark blue. And I'm touching right next to these two colors. They're blending right on the page. That's perfectly fine. And then a little bit of that black, very lightly, more like a gray. Kind of bring this more towards the right. You wanted to drop a smidge of black while that's still wet in there. That's cool. And then on the left side, I'm going to start coming in more generously with my dark blue. And then some of my black, which I am bringing in darker than I did on that rightmost side. Just remember, you can keep adding, so you can bring more paint into this and change your shapes that you're making, but we can't take it away. I will give everyone a minute to finish up their mountain and make any adjustments. remember you can do a little bit of that scrubbing that we did at that edge to help get it a little bit lighter if you need to. Does anyone need another moment on their mountain? I'm happy to give it to you. I just can't see your papers. So, yeah, I think we're good. So then let's come over to this section and bring in some water. So we're going back to our wet on wet into this section in here. And then I'm going to start coming in with my green. And then that rusty colored brown that we put into the mountain. And a little bit of the regular brown. While it's still wet, I'm going to come in with a little bit of my black that we made as well. Just trying to give this a little bit of a shadow. Getting that black in here at this bottom edge is what's going to give it that shading that it needs. And if you want to, in another little mixing area, bring your green and your dark blue together. Make a bluish green. That you can pop in here once it's almost dry. Okay, one moment. There we go. And with that green that we just mixed together, if you want to build that into a tree, and that's just involving me making an elongated triangle. Don't think about it too much. You want to see that again? I'm going to make another. Starting up at where I want it to be at the top. And then just bringing that down. Just bringing some of my dark blue in at the bottoms to give it a little more depth. And same thing for our middle tree. I am starting it out at the bottom with our dark blue and green that we mixed. As well as bringing in that black. And again, you start it up at the top where you want it to be. And I'm just going left to right trying to extend it down in an elongated triangle like I was describing before. I'm just trying to get this to look a little darker with my black. Does anybody need a little longer on their trees? I think we're looking pretty good. So let's take our brush and get some of that dark blue on it. And I want you to come in and just tap, 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 tap. Right in this little section in here. And I'm trying to tap it in the shape of the brush. And you can blend it down with some water. Continue that on up to the left. And then that darker green that we mixed, I want to make just a little more of it and check how you are on your black too. You need to make a little more of that. So that darker green was the green and that dark blue. And the black is that dark blue and brown. And wet on dry, I want to start coming into this area with my green, the regular green. And some of that yellow ochre. And just blend that on out with some water. You can start bringing in some of that darker green as well. Not trying to cover up all of that lighter green at all. And then a little bit of that dark blue. And black. And that's how we're going to get our depth, is by having those darker spots. Need to make any adjustments, feel free to do so while it's still wet. I'm just bringing a smidge of gray, which is just the black, but very lightly put on the brush, into here so that it connects a little bit better. And it's not quite dry yet to come in and do my tree, but that is our next and last thing that we have to paint. So once again, if you need to make any more black or dark green, that's what I'm doing right now while I'm waiting for it to dry. I've got my dark green and my black all ready to go. Just trying to get this a little darker in there so that it looks like it's got a bit of a shadow. And you can come back in and mess with anything you've already painted. I especially like to come back in wet on dry for things. So meaning I'm not getting water put down. Is it okay to come in and paint the tree? Okay, I think we're good. So I do have some still wet areas, but it's dry enough around the tree trunk that I feel okay to bring some water in. And we're gonna come in with that burnt sienna, that color that we used on the mountain. I'm trying to get it a little bit darker with this burnt sienna on the left. So that's just meaning I'm coming in with another layer of it. And you can start coming in with your burnt umber, your other brown color. And I'm trying to concentrate that on the left side. And it's okay that it's looking streaky, because it's supposed to look like a tree. Maybe look like some bark. Finally, a little bit of black. Not everywhere, but on that left side in a few of the places. So you can see I've got black, black, black. You need to come back at the base over it with some more green so that it looks like it is coming from behind this greenery. That's fine. Just kind of tucks it behind there. And if it's still a little wet on your tree, that is fine. I'm coming in wet on dry with my green. And I'm going tap, 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 tap. Even bring in some of that green that we made. You can even bring in some blue. And I am going over my tree trunk with this. Finally, bringing in some branches. I was doing that wet on dry with my brown. And the biggest tip is just to stop messing with it at some point, and I've just about reached that on mine personally. It is completely fine if you are still working on some stuff, especially um, in areas that we just were. But I am all done with my painting. So I don't know, Valerie, if you want to hit stop recording so that people can feel free to turn their camera on and show me their work if they want to.